Welcome to my shop again. Doggone flies in here. I going to be doing today is making a box, a beads of courage box. And this video ain't so much on how to make the box or turn the box. Everybody's got their own favorite way of turning and turning tools, so I'm not going to show much of that. But basically, what I want to show is the pattern ring here. And the pattern ring is what I call a chain link ring. I don't know, somebody else may call it something different, but that's what I call a chain link ring. And that's basically what this video will be about, is making this ring and putting it on. Well, let's get started on this project. What I'm going to do is I got a rough drawing of what I want. Normally for something like this I wouldn't even bother making a drawing, but for the video I'll make a rough drawing of what I want. The base, the top, pretty much a straight side, and where the segments are. This would be the pattern ring, then more segments. So it's just a very simple drawing. I leave myself plenty of leeway. In doing this, I'm going to use these segments. 3 of these segments I made on a previous video, so if you want to know how to make a segmented ring, I got a video on making a basic segmented ring. Fact is, these 3 are the rings I made on the video. I made 2 more rings, exactly the same. And then I made another ring that's going to border the chain. I'm going to split it on the lathe, and I'm going to use it for both sides. And to do this project, I'm going to use sapelli for the bottom and the top. The rings are cherry, other than this one, of course. I normally wouldn't make a solid bottom. I'm turning this size. This is bigger than what I like to make a solid bottom. But because it is a beads of courage box, I want a smooth bottom. And if I were to make a floating bottom, here's a floating bottom. When you make a floating bottom, you've always got a little ridge here. I don't care, you're going to get a little ridge. You can cut it down just as close as you can to the floating bottom, but you can't cut into it, so you always have a bit of a ridge here. It's what I don't want on this project. Consequently, I'm going to use a floating bottom, and I'm just going to use a solid top too for it. So these are the pieces for the bottom and the top. I'm sorry, these are not sapelli, these are cherry also. Now, the whole purpose of this thing is the pattern ring. To make a chain pattern, the easy way is to cut 2 different colored stalks all the same width. If you cut 2 different stalks all the same width, where'd the piece go? I lost a piece here. If you cut 2 different stalks the same width, you can glue them up, 2 light and 1 dark, 1 light and 2 dark, and they come out exactly the same thickness, so that when you make the ring, you can clamp it down and the ring will be flat. I lost a piece here. Let me see if I can find it now. Here it is. Now if I want to make a light colored chain, I would put a light colored piece between them. See if I can do this and get a shot of it here. Like this. And that would make me a light colored ring. Of course you cut half the rings of one material and half of the other. if I wanted a dark colored chain, I would put a dark colored piece between them like this, and I would get a dark colored chain. And of course, with a light colored chain, you put dark material on both sides. With a dark colored chain, you put light material on both sides. Now here's a ring I made years ago and never used, and I can see why when I look at it. But this here is basically what you get when you cut the segments and put them together. And of course this would need dark color on both the top and the bottom to make the chain stand out. And that's the easy way to do it. Like I said, just get material all the same thickness and gluing them up. However, for this one, I don't want a chain that's quite that thick. I want a thinner chain. That means I'm going to have to juggle the material sizes. So what I've got here, I don't know if you can see it or not, what I'm going to do is use 3/16 for the light material. And the piece with the dark inside, I'm going to make it 5/16 dark material, which is a total of 11/16 overall. But that means when I put the light one in, I'm going to have thicker dark ones. I'm going to have to use 4/16 or 1/4 inch dark ones to get the same 11/16 overall. I hope you understand that. So I've milled 2 different sizes of dark material and 1 size of light material. Now this is the thicker dark material, and I'll put it between 2 pieces like this, and I should get the 11/16. And these 2 pieces are the thinner material. Wait a minute, this is the thick one. 2 pieces of thinner material over it, and I should get the same 11/16. If I put them side by side, they should come out flat, and they do. So this is what I'm going to have to cut segments with. And this will give me a thinner chain, is what I'm looking for. So I've got 2 sizes of the dark material, but I've only got 1 size of the light material between them. I'm going to go ahead and glue these up. I've got these glued up now. They're both exactly the same thickness, 11/16. Of course, this one is 3/16 white, 5/16 dark, and 3/16 light. And this one is 4/16 or 1/4 inch, 3/16 again, and another 4/16 or 1/4 inch, which makes 11/16. It's important that they be the same thickness so that you can glue them up into a flat ring. Now, I also milled some material 11/16, the same thickness, and I'm going to cut the spacers out of this. I'm going to cut 3/16 inch spacers, which is the same width as the light colored material. Out of this, I'm going to need 16 of them because I'm using a 16 ring. I'm going to make a 7-inch ring with these. Looking at my charts, a 7-inch ring, closed segment, 16 segments per ring, calls for 1.405 inches, but I'm going to have a 3/16 spacer in between them, so I got to subtract 3/16 from them, and I come up with 1.218. So I got to cut the segments 1/8 of inch design to 1.218. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up some segments. I've got 16 segments cut and 16 spacers cut, 8 of each pattern, if you will. Now, the segment plus the spacer, if I can get this good, segment plus the spacer is 1.4 inches, which is what I need for a 7-inch ring. So this should come out right. I've got both sides of the segment sanded. If you want to know how I do segment rings, I made a video on it now, the basic segment ring construction. So if you have any questions on that, I'd sure like you to watch that video. I'm going to put these together and dry clamp them and see what we got. And of course, like I said before, it's very important that they are the same height. That's because when I smooth them up to glue them on, if I remove too much material, then I'll ruin the pattern. If you want to know about this easy clamp I'm using, well, I did a video too on how to build it. In my opinion, it's so much better than band clamps. But I did a whole video on how to build it, how to use it. Make sure they're all lined up now. Clamp it down fairly tight. Okay, looking good. Now I'm going to check and make sure that they do fit. Yes, they fit with no open joints anywhere. Ah, yeah. All the same height. I hope I don't have to remove too much material when I smooth them down. If I do, there goes the pattern. Well, I've got a clean piece of wax paper. Well, what I'm going to do, pull one piece out, one spacer out, one put glue on both sides of one piece, put it up against that spacer, move this spacer over to it, put a little bit of glue on this. Just a bit of glue on this one. This one's going to have to slide in. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. make sure all the spacers positioned right. Ain't none sticking too far inside. Work up some of this glue. Tighten this down a little bit. Now then, put the top clamp on it and get it flat. I want this one good and flat. Flatter I get it, the happier I am. Tighten the clamp down here some now. Now we'll let it set for a couple of minutes, not too long, 2 or 3 minutes about it, and then I'll take it apart. I took it out now. Of course, this cheap wax paper stuck to it in places, but I ain't worried about that. I got plenty of it. And it is just about as flat as I can expect. After it dries for about 15 minutes, I'll put it in the coal jaws and sand it flat. I'm not going to turn it, and I'm not going to run it through the drum sander. I'm going to put it in the coal jaws and just hold the sanding block up against it to get it flat. That way I'll remove as little material as possible and still get it surface ready to be glued. So, well, I've let it set actually for more than 15 minutes. This beautiful Japanese lady came into the shop and told me it was time for dinner, so it's been sitting while I ate dinner. So let's see what we've got right now. Again, if you want to see how I make this clamp, I've got a video out on it. If you want to see how I make the basic segmented rings, I got a video out, 3 ways to do that. String sticks good if you let it dry too long. Yeah, it's pretty flat. There's a little that cheap wax paper sticking to it, no big deal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it in the coal jaws, and instead of turning it and then flattening it, I'm just going to hold the sanding block up against it and flatten it, take off the least material I can to get a glue surface. So I'm going to go over to the lathe now. I've got it in the coal jaws. Now I'm going to chalk it first. Give me a colored chalk that will show up on both pieces. Chalk it real good. And I'm simply going to sand it down to a glue surface. Got the sanding block here. close enough. Flip it over and do the other side. Chop it. Got her sanded down now, and it's not enough to ruin the pattern, so I think we're good on it. So here's the ring made with thinner light material. Give me a thinner looking chain, and of course you can always use the materials cut the same dimensions to make your chain, which is a whole lot easier, and you got more material so you can take more off when you flatten it before the eye can start to see it. So this is the easy way. Just cut the material the same width and glue them together, 3 like this and 3 like that, and cut your segments. Or you can make a chain part any thickness you want. Like I did, you just have to juggle your other dimensions to get them right, get them the same height. And this one I think is going to work out okay. So we're going to start working on the box now. I've got all the rings cut for it now. These 2 rings are going to be for the pattern. I got plenty of rings cut here. Like I said, 3 of these rings I made when I made the video on making basic segmented rings. So if you need to know how to make rings, just see that video on making segmented rings. I made a couple of extra. So I've got all these made. So now what I need to do is make a bottom for it. And normally, turning this size, I would make a floating bottom like this. But being as how this is a Beads of Courage box, I'm going to use a solid bottom because I want it smooth inside. A floating bottom always has a very small ridge right here. If you need to know how to make a floating bottom, I've got a video on that, just making a floating bottom. But in this case, just a piece of cherry, and I'm going to use it for the bottom. What I'm going to do is put it in coal jaws. I'm going to cut a mortise here. I use a mortise instead of a tinion because I find it's easier to finish the bottom. Then I'm going to cut a groove around the edge here for the bandsaw guide, and I'll cut the corners off after I do that before I reverse it. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this up in the coal jaws. Just turn a mortise and turn a groove here. I got this set up now. See if I can do this. I've got a mortise cut in it, a little bit of a dovetail. Got a groove cut around the edge I can use as a bandsaw guide. I'm going to take it off and bandsaw it. Then I'm going to put this on a chuck and turn the inside of it. I've got it on the chuck. I'm going to start dishing out the bottom. I'm going to put a flat area on the edge to start gluing on the segments. And I want this just a little bit wider than the segments when I'm finished, to kind of put a lip on the bottom. So I'm going to leave plenty of flat area to glue the first segment ring on, but I do have to turn it flat first. First thing I'm going to do is round this. Then I'm going to start dishing it out, and I'm going to flatten the edge here. Then I'm going to smooth the edge up, ready for a ring to be glued on. That's approximately the shape I want on the edge. So now let's start on the face. Boy, the shop smells good now, cutting that cherry. Yeah. I'm going to mark it with chalk now, and then I'm going to sand it down perfectly flat. Now the most important tool in the shop is the sanding block. Sand it down flat. Now I'm going to turn this over and hit it with a smooth side sandpaper. And it's ready to put on the first ring. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to glue the first ring. I got the first ring mounted in cold jaws, of course with the smooth side out. I got the cold jaws on the live center. I'm going to put this on the tailstock after I put glue on it. I'm going to put it in tailstock, bring it up, spin it around to spread the glue, and glue it down. I just put more glue in the bottle, so I should have plenty of glue now. Just spread a little around. Don't have to be spread out real thin with a glue spreader. Nothing. I'll do that by spinning it when I bring it up together. Okay, got some glue on it. Put it in the tailstock. Bring the tailstock up. Not real tight yet. And spin it around. Spread the glue out. Get it spread out good. Tighten it a little bit and spread it some more. This don't have to be lined up any particular way because this is a solid bottom, so wherever it stops it's fine. Okay, go ahead and tighten it down a little. Put some wax paper on it to keep the glue off the lathe. Have to put some weight on that. I got the fan going. It's so hot here. This is eastern North Carolina and it does get hot. It's been 15 minutes, so I'm going to pull the tailstock back. Open the cold jaws. Slide the tailstock back. Now, the squeeze out in here is still wet and runny. I'll wipe some of it up. And you think, wow, there's no way it can hold with wet runny glue like that. But it will, it'll hold. Go ahead and turn it. What I'm going to do is turn the bottom a little more, turn the inside, bring the bottom into the inside. I'm going to flatten the top. When I turn the inside, I'm going to leave a little bit right at the top so I can blend it into the next ring when I put it on. Ready, now I'm going to flatten the edge and then start turning on the inside. I need to sand it flat for the next ring. Okay, I'm ready to glue on the next ring. I'm going to glue it on just the same way I did the first one. So no need going through that again. After 15 minutes, I flattened the second ring, finished turning the first ring into the second ring, turned the second ring all up at the last little bit so I can make it into the third ring. So what I'm going to do now is start sanding the bottom in the first ring. I'll do that because it's easy to get to right now. I'm going to go through all the grits and sand it up. I went through all the grits of the sandpaper now up through 600. Now I'm going to go to the scratch pads. And these scratch pads are sure a lot cheaper than trying to buy the finer grade sandpapers. They work just as good. Start with a grain. That's just as smooth as a piece of glass in there now. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the third. The third ring is on. The top's been flattened and sanded smooth, ready, good glue surface. The inside's been turned almost up to the top of the last ring here. I'm not going to sand it this time. I put another ring on. I don't sand it after every ring. I do turn it, but don't sand it after every ring. I'll wait till I get another ring or two on before I sand it. It's time to put this ring on. This goes on both sides of the pattern ring. It's 3/4, almost an inch thick probably. I'm going to glue it on. I'm going to turn and flatten and sand this side, get a good glue surface on it. I'm going to turn the inside just around and the outside. I'm going to part it in two. I'm going to save the piece I parted off for the other side of the pattern ring. I already have a good glue surface on it. Then I'm going to skinny it down, turn it down to about a 1/4 of an inch. I want both the top and bottom to be the same. Don't need too much glue around here. I don't want too much here, just enough to set it off. About 1/4 of an inch should be right. So I'm going to go ahead and it's been 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is just round the center up a little bit. I'm going to flatten this side. I'm going to sand it, get a good glue surface on it before I part it off. That way when I get to go to glue it back on, I'll have a good surface. After I do that, I'm going to turn the round spot right square in the center. Then I'm going to part it off. when I part a piece off, I bring the tool rest up, run it in, so it'll catch the parted off ring. First thing I'm going to do is turn it around right here in the center. Got a ring to put back on the other side now. Now I need to turn this down about 1/4 of an inch. I need something just enough to set off the pattern. And then I got to smooth it up and put a glue surface on it. Doggone walnut. That's 0.27 inches, a little bit more. .268. I'm going to sand it down from here, I think. .254. That's pretty close. I ain't gonna get any closer than that. So now it's time to go ahead and glue up this ring on it. So that's going to do now. I'm just going to glue that ring on. If you remember, I flattened both sides of this when I made this ring. So I'm not even going to turn it now, the inside. I'm going to wait until I get all 3 of these pattern rings on. And I'm going to go ahead and glue on the piece that was previously parted off. I think I might have to turn the outside of this down sometime so the pins on the coal jaws will clear. So I think I might just go ahead and turn the outside of this down some. I'm afraid the pins won't clear on the coal jaws if I don't. And after I get that on and sized and smooth, then I'm going to turn the inside like I did before. Just turn these all 3 as one ring. So let me turn the outside down a little bit. Let me check and see if the pins are clear. Yeah, they clear now. Not by much, but they clear. This has got feathers on it. I'm going to have to knock them feathers off. So now I can go ahead and glue the other dark ring on, the ring of Peruvian walnut. After I get it on, I'm going to turn it down a 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn the inside, and then I'll do some sanding finally. I've got this ring turned down to a 1/4 inch, just like the other one. I've got it flat and smooth, good glue surface. Now I'm going to go ahead and go inside, do some more turning inside, then I'm going to do some more sanding. I'm going to leave a little bit right here at the top so I can blend it into the next ring when it's glued on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the inside some. I've got it turned almost all the way up, just a little bit left here so I can blend it into the next ring. I've got it sanded all the way up to the bottom of the pattern. So now I'm ready to go ahead and glue on the next ring. I've got 2 more rings to glue on. So I'm going to glue the next one on just like I did before and let it set for 15 minutes. It's been over 15 minutes and I've turned the inside here all the way almost up to the end. I flattened this ring. Now I'm going to put on the last ring. After I get the last ring on, I'm going to go ahead and finish turning, sanding the inside. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue up the next ring just like before. I've got the inside turned now, and I've got it sanded. It's just a smooth inside now. You'd think it was ready to finish. It's just smooth as glass. But what I'm going to do is take a piece of paper towel. I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to wipe the inside, just enough to get it moist. That way, it raises up the fibers that have been pushed down from turning and from sanding. So I'm just going to wet it a little bit all over, just enough to get it moist on the surface. Also pick up any dust that's left. Now I'm going to let it dry. When it dries, it won't be smooth anymore because of all the fibers raising up. After it dries, then I'm going to go back in and start at all about 400 grit or so and do it all again from there up. 400 grit, 600, and then scratch pads. And it'll be smooth in, and all the fibers that have been pushed down will be cut off. Then I'll be able to put some finish on it. It's been smoothed again. So I'm going to go ahead and put my favorite finish in the inside, which just happens to be shellac. You may ask now, why did I turn the inside first as I came out and sand it? It's very simple. It's a whole lot easier to do it that way than to wait until I got it together and then try and get down in here, way down in here, and turn it. It's easy just to turn it as you come out. No problem. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some shellac on it. I'm putting on a light coat. This is just the first coat. Okay, there's the first coat of shellac. I'll put on the second coat after it dries. It's fairly light shellac, about 1 pound cut. So I'll put one more, maybe two more on. I've got 3 coats of shellac on it now. I'm going to go ahead and wax it. This is hard Canobro wax. I'm just going to rub it in and then buff it out. Ah yes, smooth now. Time to start turning the outside. I'm going to start turning the outside at the top here. Turn it down to the thickness I want on the first ring. Then I'm going to put my cone center on, bring the tailstock up. I always turn between centers if I can. No reason not to. So first thing I'm going to do is just start turning this first ring here down to the thickness I want. And being as how this is a beads of courage bow, they don't want thin walls, so I'm going to leave it pretty thick. I got this in turned the thickness where I want it. I did that so the cone won't be in my way when I try to turn it. And I'm going to bring the cone up now I'm not going to make it real tight, just bring it up firm, just enough to stabilize it a little. That's all I want to do. Tell when it hits. Maybe I better get the tailstock a little closer. Bring her up now. There we go, right there. Now I can go ahead and turn the rest to the outside. I use my favorite turning tools to turn it. Of course, you could use whatever tool you like. I sanded it all the way up. I sprayed it a little bit with water. Then I sanded it from 400 again and took it through all the scratch pads. And you can see there's a shine on it now with no finish. I made it just a slight barrel shape. Reason being, if I tried to make it straight, any little variation can be seen by the eye easier. But if you get a very slight barrel shape on it, it eliminates that. I think I made it a little smaller at the top, but that's what I'm looking for, just a very small bit smaller at the top than the bottom. I'm going to have to make the top next to fit on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put shellac on it. I'm going to put a light coat of shellac on it, let it dry. I'm going to rub it out, put another light coat of shellac on it, let it dry, rub it out, put a third light coat on it, then I'm going to wax it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start putting shellac on it. I've put 3 coats of shellac on it, let it dry about 10 minutes. And I'm going to take the finest scratch pad, it's actually equal to 4-0 steel wool. I'm going to buff it out a little bit, then I'm going to wax it. It's just hard carnauba wax. You can get it at any woodworking store. Now to rub the wax out. There we go. Got a good shine on it now. Now I'm going to leave it on the chuck right now. So I'm going to make the top. First I'm going to fit the top to it. After I fit the top to it and do the inside of the top, then I'm going to put the top on it, bring up the tailstock, and turn the top of the top. This is what I'm going to be using for the top. It's another piece of cherry. What I want to do is match it to the bottom, so I want it to fit over the top like a cap. I'm going to put it on a coal jaws, and I'm going to turn the inside first and fit it to the top of this and then finish the inside. After I do that, I'm going to take it out of the coal jaws, trim off the corners, and then turn the outside of it by putting this back on the lathe and putting the top on it and bringing the tailstock up. So I'm going to get started by putting this in the coal jaws and start turning the top. I've got the inside turned now. I started turning the edge because I won't be able to get to it later. I've got it sanded. And it fits on just a wee bit loose. It's for a beads of courage box, and you don't want a tight fit for beads of courage box. They want a slightly loose fit. So I'm going to go ahead and put finish on this. After I put finish on this, I'm going to bandsaw off the corners, and I'm going to put the box back on the lathe, and I'm going to hold the top over it. I'm going to put blue tape around the box so it won't scar up and give it a little bit of tightness. Now I'll bring the tailstock up to hold it. So I'm going to go ahead and put some finish on this. I got the box mounted back up. I got some tape over the edge. I'm going to put the top on it now. First thing I'm going to do is drill a hole in it. I got the drill bit marked so it don't go too deep. I'm going to drill a hole because I'm going to use a dowel like this to hold the knob on. So I'm just going to have to hold it up here while I drill the knob on, while I drill it. Bring the drill up. There we go. Turn it on slow. Don't need to be very fast. I didn't lock the bit down. That's the depth I want it. I doubled the tape to hold it a little tighter. Now I've brought the cone center up to hold it in place, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the outside of it now. Give me a shape I like. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my favorite tools and turn it. I've got a piece of ebony. I won this at a door prize drawing at the club. It's not very big. I'm going to take it, chuck it up. I'm going to center drill it on the lathe, 3/8 inch for a dowel. Then I'm just going to turn the small knob to the top of the box. I ain't going to go through all of that showing that. It's just a simple little turning for a knob. Now I've got the knob turned, put on with a dowel, 3/8 inch dowel. So the top is finished. I got the outside and the inside of this finished. So there's only one thing left to do. It's not finished until you turn the bottom. So what I'm going to do is put this on the coal jaws. The outside's got a slight taper, so I'm going to put the coal jaws on the inside. I'm going to put it on the lathe, put the coal jaws on it, and then I'm going to bring the tailstock up to hold it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the lathe now. It's on the cold jaws now, holding it from the inside. Tighten it up, but not too tight. You can split the joints if you tighten it too tight. I got the tailstock up to hold it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and turn down the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and sand it up now, and then I'll sign it and seal it. The bottom's been sanded now. I'm going to sign it, and then I'm just going to wipe a little shellac over it. So I'm going to, well, there you have it. It's been signed and sealed on the bottom. I put blue tape on the top to protect it while I had it on the cold jaws. I'll pull the blue tape off. I always put blue tape on to protect the finish. Okay, there's the top, and that's the box. Like I said, this video is not so much on making the box or turning it. It's more on the pattern ring. That's what I really wanted to show. And you can see it come out pretty nice. I think it'll pass. And again, like I said, this is a beads of courage box, so its walls are thick. They don't want thin wall turning. And it's got a big bottom, so it'll be stable. I think it'll do. So I really appreciate you watching the video. And I would sure like to have you come back and watch my next videos. Or if you haven't seen some of the older ones, go watch them. If you got any questions or anything, I'm going to put my email right on the bottom. So you can always email me with any questions or comments. And I thank you.